Welcome back to Rare Coin Value, the channel where hidden treasures in your pocket change come to life. Today, we're diving into 3 ultra-rare US 1-cent coins that could be sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or even in your wallet, and yet be worth a small fortune. Some of these pennies have shocked collectors with values reaching into the hundreds of thousands, and even more. So, grab a seat, because what I'm about to show you will make you look at your spare change in a whole new way. And before we uncover these unbelievable coins, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the chance to discover the next rare piece of American history that could change your life. Our first stop takes us back to 1968. Denver Mint. The Lincoln cent from that year might look like an ordinary penny at first glance, but hold on. This coin can carry a story, and in the right condition, it can carry a value that leaves even seasoned collectors stunned. Picture this, an extra fine example of a 1968 Lincoln cent, one that still shows crisp detail in Lincoln's hair, sharp edges in the lettering, and a bold strike on the reverse with the Lincoln Memorial standing proud. Most people would overlook it, tossing it into a jar or spending it without a second thought. But collectors know better. Now, the year 1968 was a fascinating one for coinage. The U.S. Mint had just undergone big changes after the Coinage Act of 1965, which shook up silver coinage and production processes. Denver was striking pennies in the billions, which makes it even harder to believe that a single coin could break away from the crowd and become a treasure. But that's exactly what happens when you mix rarity, condition, and a touch of minting mystery. One of the key factors in the 1968 penny's value is condition. In well-circulated shape, sure, it might only bring in a few cents, but when you step into the world of extra fine, uncirculated, or hold your breath error varieties, the numbers shoot up like a rocket. In extra fine condition, you're already looking at a value that can surprise many casual collectors, pushing well into the hundreds. But if you're holding one in pristine mint state, with blazing red luster and touched by time, you're suddenly talking thousands. But the real shock comes from the errors. In 1968, the Denver Mint produced a handful of double-die obverse varieties. Imagine looking at Liberty or In God We Trust and seeing a ghost-like doubling that shouldn't be there. Collectors go wild for these kinds of mistakes, and the value jumps from thousands into the jaw-dropping range of over $45,000 to $75,000, depending on condition. Now, that's already incredible, but wait until you hear this. There are reports of rare off-center strikes and misaligned dies on 1968 cents that have commanded even higher figures at auction, sometimes pushing into six-figure territory. Yes, a penny worth over $100,000, and let's not forget the human story here. The 1968 is a coin that many Americans alive today have actually spent or saved. Some might still have jars of them in the attic or tucked away in an old coffee can. Imagine the shock of pulling one out, brushing off the dust, and realizing you're holding a coin that could sell for the price of a luxury car, or even a home. That's the kind of discovery that sends chills down your spine. So, how do you identify a potentially valuable 1968 penny? First, check the condition. Extra fine examples, like the one we're talking about, are already collectible. But the higher up you go, especially into mint state red coins, the more explosive the value becomes. Next, carefully inspect the obverse lettering and date for doubling. A strong double die can mean the difference between pocket change and life-changing money. And finally, look for those rare striking errors, off-center designs, clipped planchets, and anything that looks unusual. Those mistakes can mean a jackpot. Collectors have spent over $450,000 combined on rare 1968 examples in auctions, and the record prices keep climbing. It's almost unbelievable to think a coin most people ignore could command such staggering sums. That's the magic of numismatics history, rarity, and value all locked into a tiny piece of copper. And this is just the beginning, because the next coin on our list takes rarity and value to a whole new level. Now, let's rewind just a few more years. Back to 1964, the year the Beatles took America by storm. the year of the Civil Rights Act, and the year millions of Americans were carrying freshly minted Lincoln cents in their pockets. At first glance, a 1964 penny in fine condition doesn't seem extraordinary. It's brown, well-worn, and most people wouldn't give it a second thought. But what if I told you that this humble little coin can carry a secret that turns it from pocket change into a jaw-dropping prize worth tens of thousands? Even more, the 1964 cent was struck in massive numbers, over 6.4 billion in Philadelphia alone, plus another 3.7 billion in Denver. With numbers like that, it almost feels impossible for a single coin to stand out. But here's where the story takes a shocking twist. Some of these coins were struck with errors so rare, and in conditions so pristine, that their value today can push collectors into bidding wars that leave jaws on the floor. In fine condition, an average 1964 cent is worth just a few cents more than face value. Nothing special, until you check for the right details. The big excitement comes with double die errors, and 1964 produced some of the strongest double dies in the Lincoln series. Imagine looking at "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" and seeing bold, doubled letters that almost look like shadows dancing across the surface. Even in lower grades, those errors can bring in hundreds, sometimes thousands. But in mint state, with that bright red luster collectors dream of, the prices explode into the high five-figure range. We're talking $40,000, $60,000, and in one shocking case, over $100,000 at auction. But that's not all. 1964 also produced dramatic off-center strikes and clipped planchets. One rare off-center error where Lincoln's portrait is shifted far to the left, leaving blank planchet space on the right, sold for more than the price of a brand new luxury SUV. That's the kind of error that transforms a 1-cent coin into something that stops collectors dead in their tracks. And the Denver Mint versions? Some collectors claim they've seen coins with RPMs repunched mint marks where the D was struck twice. These subtle little quirks fascinate experts, and when the right buyer comes along, the bidding can skyrocket. Think about this. In 1964, pennies were just a daily part of life. Kids bought candy with them, parents dropped them into piggy banks, and millions jingled around in pockets across America. Today, those very same coins, if carrying the right error or preserved in uncirculated glory, can be worth more than a retirement account. In fact, rare 1964 double dies have brought in more than $150,000 under the hammer, a number so staggering it feels unreal. So, how do you know if your 1964 penny is special? First, check the date and lettering under magnification. Doubling jumps right out once you know what to look for. Next, flip it over and study the Lincoln Memorial. Are there ghostly shadows of doubling in the columns? That's another red flag of a double die reverse. Finally, check the mint mark. If you've got a Denver coin, look closely for signs of repunching. Every small detail could mean the difference between 1 cent and 6 figures. And here's where it gets even more exciting. Collectors are still discovering new varieties of the 1964 penny today. The hunt never ends, and it means that even an old jar of pennies could hide a coin that changes your life. Just imagine the shock pulling out a coin you've had for 50 years, only to learn it could sell for the price of a house. The 1964 penny is living proof that sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins carry the most extraordinary stories. And while that's enough to leave you speechless, don't even blink, because the next coin in this lineup takes us to a whole new level of rarity and value that could blow the roof off everything you thought you knew about pennies. And before we reveal it, if you're enjoying this journey through America's rarest cents, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the chance to spot the treasure hiding in your own change. And now, we reach the final coin in our lineup. And trust me when I say this one will leave you speechless. It's the 1966 Lincoln cent, a penny that most people overlook, yet in the right condition and with the right details, it has shocked collectors with values that soar into the 6-figure range. Yes, you heard that right. A single cent from 1966 that could be worth more than most people's homes, let's set the stage. The year 1966 was a turbulent time for U.S. coinage. The mint was still reeling from the Coinage Act of 1965, which removed silver from dimes and quarters and created widespread confusion among collectors. To meet demand, mint marks were eliminated for coins from 1965 to 1967. That means the 1966 penny carries no mint mark at all, which already makes it stand out in history. Billions were struck, over 2.1 billion, to be exact, and yet, among those billions, a tiny fraction hold the keys to staggering value. In extra fine condition, the 1966 penny starts out as a collectible curiosity, worth more than face value, but the story only gets better from here. In uncirculated red condition, values climb sharply into the hundreds and thousands, because so few have survived with their original brilliance intact. But the real fireworks come from the rarest errors and die varieties. One of the most famous is the double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile and the surrounding letters show ghostly doubling. On a 1966 penny, this error is incredibly scarce, and when one appears at auction, the price can leap into tens of thousands instantly. And then there are off-center strikes, dramatic misalignments that leave part of the planchet blank. A perfectly preserved off-center error from 1966 has been known to fetch sums well beyond 50,000. But here's where it gets almost unbelievable. A small number of 1966 pennies were struck on experimental planchets, leftover metal stock that shouldn't have been used. These rare wrong planchet errors are like lightning in a bottle, and collectors have paid over $200,000 for the privilege of owning one. Imagine a coin most people wouldn't look at twice suddenly turning into a life-changing discovery. Now, think about how this plays out in real life. A coin jar tucked away in a kitchen, an old roll of cents sitting untouched for decades, or a penny passed down from a parent or grandparent. You pick it up. Notice it looks a little sharper, a little different, and with the right magnifying glass, you realize it's not just any penny. It's a jackpot. That moment of discovery is priceless, the kind of moment that turns ordinary collectors into treasure hunters for life. And the values? They keep climbing. Rare 1966 varieties have crossed the $300,000 mark in recent years, setting record after record. Collectors know how scarce these coins are, and the competition to own one drives the numbers higher and higher. It's hard to believe that a penny most people would pass over without a thought could command such breathtaking sums. But that's the magic of numismatics, the thrill, the history, and the shock value all wrapped up in a coin smaller than a quarter. So, how can you spot a valuable 1966 penny? Start by checking condition. Extra fine is good. But if you see a bright red uncirculated coin with strong detail, you may be onto something huge. Next, look carefully at the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile for signs of doubling. And finally, study the strike. If it's off-center or looks unusual in any way, you might be holding a rare error that collectors would pay a fortune to own. The 1966 penny is living proof that history and value can hide in plain sight. Billions were struck, but only a handful carry the kind of rarity that can change a collector's life. And the thought that one might be sitting in a drawer in your own home right now is what makes this hobby so electrifying. So now, you've seen them, three seemingly ordinary US 1-cent coins that can transform into treasures worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The 196 AD, the 1964, and the 1966, each one carrying its own shocking story and jaw-dropping value. Who knew the smallest coin in your pocket could hold the biggest surprise of your life? If this has made you curious about the coins hiding in your own collection, don't forget to subscribe, because we've only just scratched the surface. Every week, we uncover more hidden treasures from the US Mint. And who knows, the next one might be sitting in your pocket right now.